Okay, welcome to the very first edition of a new show. It is the House of Takes Power Lunch, a show in which around lunchtime on the West Coast, we will discuss your National Basketball Association and NFL news, as well as a whole lot more. Coming up on our very first show, we like to ask the big questions like, what planet, seriously, does Aaron Rodgers actually live on? We're going to get into that. Plus, I've got some thoughts for you on Darvin Ham and the Los Angeles Lakers, as Steve Kerr in a bit of hot water with his young player, Jonathan Kuminga, today. We'll talk about that. I've got some Pat McAfee video regarding Aaron Rodgers, and I absolutely want to talk to you about Sunday night's absolutely huge football game, which involves the Buffalo Bills, who hopefully won't spend too much time at the beach in Miami and actually stay on the tracks of the roller coaster ride that this Buffalo Bills team has been on all season. I've got that plus a whole lot more coming up on the House of Takes Power Lunch. As always, I am Dave Dabbah, coming to you live and on tape from the heart of the Silicon Valley. All right, just getting used to the equipment here, so bear with me for a second. That being said, a big day in sports yesterday, and certainly a big day in sports coming today. There has been some movement, quiet movement on the Draymond Green front, but nothing too major to this point. So as I mentioned, we're going to talk about the Lakers, Steve Kerr, Aaron Rodgers, and the Buffalo Bills. I thought we would actually go ahead and kick things off with a little bit of a Buffalo Bills commentary, and then we'll get into the association in just a little bit. But first, a little bit of Josh Allen video for you.
This thing on the plane, we get our little stipend, and it's 5, a 10, and a 50. And I sit there and I go, heads or tails, Steph. And I let it drop and it spins around. And he won all 3 today, and I'm still furious about it.
Yeah.
And there's nothing I could have done to change anything.
He's calling
it's a coin flip.
Right.
But I'm still ticked off. That makes me super mad. I hate losing. It's the worst thing about this sport, second to injuries, obviously. But losing is just, it's no fun for anybody. It causes a bunch of different factors that go on, and it's like I said, it's no fun for anybody, and I can't stand it.
Okay, Josh. Of course, nobody wants to lose. It is interesting to hear Josh Allen, in his own words, talk about, quite frankly, just how competitive he is. And when you hear him talk about Stephon Diggs, the question really sort of remains in the mind of many people out there. Why is Stephon Diggs not actually being targeted more than he has been in this most recent sort of winning streak for the Buffalo Bills? It is a good question. Let's see what Josh has to say about that.
We don't want to rely on anybody else. We gotta, in our minds, it's a must-win game. We gotta go get this done. And there's a hungry team, a team that's really good, that's played very well throughout the season, standing in front of us. So we gotta do whatever we can.
How exciting is it earning the opportunity to play the nationally televised game with this on?
Yeah, Joe always talks about the reward for doing is the opportunity to do more, and that's what we've got in front of us. We've talked about this, for the last 5-6 weeks now of how our season can go and what we want to do and what we want to accomplish, and everything what we want to accomplish is still in front of us. But again, it's going to take a group effort on all three phases to go get a victory on Sunday in a hostile environment.
How will it affect you knowing that you're the last game, so you'll know exactly what the math is you could be in before kickoff? How does that, how might that alter things, or if in any way?
It really doesn't for us. We're focused on,
Okay, of course he's not going to say it alters anything in any way. Of course it's going to alter stuff. Leave it to the press to ask a question that has absolutely no reason to actually be asked to poor Josh Allen there. Look, the Josh Allen roller coaster ride, as well as the roller coaster ride that the Buffalo Bills have been on all season, is nothing short of, quite frankly, hard and super entertaining to watch all at the same time. Josh Allen, who has 15 or 15 running touchdowns this year, has basically very similar Patrick Mahomes style quarterback numbers, except, of course, for the rushing touchdowns, where he has 15. Mahomes actually has 0. The rest of the stats from a passing perspective, both interceptions and touchdowns, as well as percentages, are basically a wash. Yet the Pro Bowl players were announced yesterday, and Patrick Mahomes got in well ahead of Josh Allen. Now, of course, Patrick Mahomes has been, quite frankly, really the best quarterback in the National Football League for the last 4 years. And when you're the best quarterback, clearly, in the National Football League, regardless of what the stats actually say, plus in Patrick Mahomes' defense, he's got a bunch of wide receivers that can't line up on sides, and also have a hard time holding on to balls, which is the core of what a wide receiver should be doing. So Patrick Mahomes is into the Pro Bowl. Josh Allen currently left out looking in. Is that a good thing or a bad thing for the Buffalo Bills? Look, this game is going to be very interesting. I've got Buffalo, regardless of what's needed, actually going into Miami to win this. They are currently favored by 3 in this particular game. I think the Bills should be able to get things done. Tell me what you think, North America. I want to hear what your thoughts are on this particular topic. All right, so moving on. Now, the big controversy of the morning so far has been some information that came out about good old Jonathan Kuminga. Now, Jonathan Kuminga, let's see here, in just 16 minutes or just 19 minutes of play yesterday in their 3-point loss at home to the Denver Nuggets, Jonathan Kuminga scored 16 points. He had 4 assists and 4 rebounds. And then Steve Kerr said, "Oh, that's not good enough. We're going to go ahead and bench Jonathan Kuminga for the next 19 minutes, and he's not going to play again in the game." So a report came out. We'll go ahead and put that up for you here. A little earlier in the day, basically saying Jonathan Kuminga has lost faith in Steve Kerr. Now, I am here in the Silicon Valley, and I can tell you that Jonathan Kuminga lost faith in Steve Kerr quite some time ago. The thought that Steve Kerr is such a good coach, while it's true when you provide Steve with, if you will, Ferrari and Porsche and to some degree Rolls-Royce style players on his team, Steve Kerr can certainly coach those teams well. But look what happened to Steve Kerr with a young basketball team. by the way, full of superstars, not Jonathan Kumingas, but, the Tyrese Halliburtons, the Ant-Mans of the world. And look what happened in the World Basketball Championships this past summer. They played well in most of their warm-up games to it, but ended up not even winning a bronze medal in that. Kerr, as good as a head coach as he is, and you certainly don't want to take anything away from the chips that he's had, one thing Steve Kerr hasn't done or proven during his career is the ability to bring a young player along. Just look at this Golden State Warriors roster over the Steve Kerr tenure and how many young, I mean, super young, just out of college, went to college for a year or two, and are entering the NBA while they're still in their teenage years. How many of those players can you say that Steve Kerr has mentored to the point that those players have become very successful? Sports, like in business, is all about the eye test. Now, in business, you're either succeeding financially, and if you look at your financial reports, you can see whether or not you're selling the amount of money against the products and or services that you're trying to sell against what your targets are. You can tell on a daily and, if you will, a quarterly and yearly basis how successful you are. When you look at young basketball players in the National Basketball Association, very few of them actually are out of the gate going to look great. Just look how bad Wemby looked early in the summer league. Even look at some of the early games that Wemby played early in this season. We certainly understand that at this point, the San Antonio Spurs aren't winning a lot of games. But look at how Wemby has played over the last month. He is clearly getting more adapt to the association and is clearly being coached up by Greg Popovich to the point where the San Antonio Spurs are finally doing what I recommended they do in the first place and start to feature Wemby as your primary player. You need to give him the opportunity to do that. As for Jonathan Kuminga, who has been a member of the Golden State Warriors for over 3 years now, he has gradually improved year over year to the point where I think if Jonathan Kuminga were a full-time starter for any other basketball team in the association, I think you are looking at a player that's going to score somewhere, and this might shock you, but somewhere between 20 and 25 points a night. I think in year 2 of being a full-time player in the association, Jonathan Kuminga could be north of 25 points a night. His game, his shooting percentages, and the way he attacks on defense as well has all improved dramatically over the last 3 years. And everybody can see it. Yet, Steve Kerr, even with a depleted Draymond Greenless roster, continues to play, if you will, mind games with Jonathan Kuminga. Now, I don't know how their personal relationship is, and I don't know if that personal relationship is in any way affecting the decisions that Steve Kerr is making about playing Jonathan Kuminga more. And when we've seen Jonathan Kuminga played more by the Golden State Warriors, we've seen the Warriors actually be successful. Last night was absolutely ridiculous that Jonathan Kuminga didn't play in the last 19 minutes of the game, in a game in which he scored 16 points in 19 minutes of play. Made no sense at all. And the questions for Steve Kerr, which I'm sure he won't answer, do need to be asked about why Jonathan Kuminga didn't play more. All right. Tell me your thoughts on that, North America. I want to hear what you have to say. Just a quote here from Kevin O'Connor of the Ringer fame. It was clear a long time ago that Kerr isn't the best coach for Kuminga or any younger player. Last night feels like the game all players will realize it, though. It's so inexcusable Kuminga wasn't out there. Look, Kevin O'Connor is absolutely right. And I'm not really sure exactly what the solution is here. Now, if there's some reasons that Kuminga wasn't playing, I certainly don't know what those are. Is just flat out ridiculous. All right. So moving on, we're going to get into the Los Angeles Lakers and the sky is falling in just a little bit. We'll talk about Darvin Ham and the lineups that the Lakers have been putting out there and really sort of uncover whether or not we think the actual sky is falling. But before we get into that, I thought it was important to spend just a little bit of time talking about good old Aaron Rodgers on the very first episode of the House of Takes Power Lunch. And like when you think about Aaron Rodgers, and obviously a great player in the National Football League, obviously a player with a chip on his shoulder if you go all the way back to draft day or draft night, and then to have to sit there and watch Brett Favre for as long as he did. And you know that Brett Favre probably wasn't the best mentor. Like, I'm not really sure. Like, if you have kids at home and you're looking for a good mentor, I don't think Brett Favre is in your top 100 list, if you know what I mean. So Aaron Rodgers was brought up, so to speak, in an environment that included Brett Favre. Now, I don't want to blame Brett Favre for Aaron Rodgers spotting tiny green aliens in outer space. Oh, excuse me. Actually, in our space. I don't want to blame him for that. I don't want to blame Brett Favre for Aaron Rodgers publicly talking about the hallucinogens that he's been taking during the offseason. I don't want to get into any of that. Aaron Rodgers was voted most inspirational by his New York Jets team earlier today. And when I saw that, I was like, most inspirational. What? Most inspirational to not tell you the truth? What? Most inspirational to flat out lie to you? What? Most inspirational to actually just go out and make up stories? Most inspirational to actually get himself kicked off of ESPN, which, by the way, hasn't happened yet. Which takes me to the Pat McAfee apology, or sort of apology, about what Aaron Rodgers said about Jimmy Kimmel a couple days ago on the Pat McAfee show.
Whenever you're freewheeling and dealing in here, you know, and you're having conversations,
letting it fly.
They can certainly lead to some places that cause like international news and things like that. And whenever there's accusations made about people, that can lead to lawsuits. Now, listen, have been in one before.
Yes.
With Brett Favre. Now, how'd that case end? Well, it ended with me having to read a letter basically stating that I know nothing that anybody else doesn't know publicly already, that I'm not in the know for that whole thing. And then that was kind of disappeared, but that was a big thing for a long time.
Yeah.
How did that come? Well, we just started making jokes about stuff. We started talking shit about stuff. And then our show, I think that is a good part of what we do, is we're able to kind of just roll with the punches. We're able to have a good time. We're all rather invested and studied in what's happening around the sports world at all times. Caitlin Clark last night.
Oh, hell yeah. Unreal.
Wait to hear about Luke Littler today.
Dog.
So we are very much in that world. So everybody that comes on the stage has to be able to like basically keep up with where we're headed. There's no there's no formal outline of what we're going to talk about, how we're going to talk about it. There's no A block, B block, C block. There's no scheduled conversations. There's no scheduled debates. There's no topics for you to think about before you get in there. There is just an opportunity to talk about damn near everything for 3.5 hours. And in doing so, the upside of that is some magic can come that you never knew was going to come.
Absolutely.
Good times can be had, laughs can be had, especially when you're rolling on like 2 hours of sleep like we were yesterday after the Rose Bowl. You can have a blast. And on the flip side, there could be some things that were certainly probably, I mean, we're going to have to hear from Aaron on that, meant to be shit talk joke that can then become something that is obviously a very serious allegation that then leads to a massive overnight story, one in which, put baby down, sleep, haven't seen her in a while, and then I pick up my phone. Oh, boy. But I can see exactly why Jimmy Kimmel felt the way he felt, especially with his position. But I think Aaron was just trying to talk shit. Now, did it go too far? In a lot of people, Jimmy Kimmel certainly said that was the case. We and I immediately upon it happening, trying to be like, ooh, you know. But that is Aaron and Jimmy. They've been
jousting a bit.
I don't know, you know.
I absolutely love that. That is Aaron and Jimmy just basically going at each other publicly is what McAfee was getting at there. I mean, look, Pat McAfee, he's got a huge contract with ESPN. He's under a lot of pressure. The show, which, by the way, is still, generating significant ratings for ESPN. Now, I don't think they're getting the ratings via ESPN directly that they thought they'd get, sort of into the ratings numbers just for a second. Basically, First Take usually has like 500,000 viewers. And as you get into the Pat McAfee show, that viewership falls off into the 300,000s. Now, there's more to Pat McAfee than just the television ratings. It's also the YouTube ratings. And so you can, argue that while the television ratings might be dropping, that the show is still extraordinarily successful on YouTube and their other channels. So I don't want to get into that debate. But, now that Pat McAfee is no longer independent, the question is, should the folks over at ESPN who have this loose cannon who comes on the Pat McAfee show on every Tuesday, should they actually intervene in some way? Look, Aaron Rodgers equals ratings for the Pat McAfee show. And that's something that Pat McAfee discovered years ago. And it actually has helped lead to Pat McAfee's success on his show. We should be honest about what that is. But that doesn't give Aaron Rodgers the right to go out and slander people on a Disney-owned network. So the question is, what should ESPN do about Aaron Rodgers and the Pat McAfee show? Because Aaron Rodgers is indeed good for the show. And I don't think that the folks over at ESPN, and I don't think that Aaron Rodgers would agree to be censored in any way up front. In other words, I don't think Aaron Rodgers would agree to plan exactly what he's going to be able to say and not say on a show with Pat McAfee. It would take away, if you will, from some of the luster of those interviews and that show itself. So the question does remain in this particular case, because Aaron Rodgers absolutely went after Jimmy Kimmel in an unnecessary way earlier in the week, basically coming out and saying, hey, I wonder if Jimmy Kimmel's name is going to be on the Epstein list. The Epstein list, which came out yesterday, of course, did not have Jimmy Kimmel's name on it. And Jimmy Kimmel certainly responded in a way that you would expect Jimmy Kimmel to respond. Look, arguments between people in the media, members of the media, hosts of shows like Jimmy Kimmel, and famous athletes like Aaron Rodgers on shows like the Pat McAfee show are good for everybody, regardless of what the topic is. Still, the point of it all is to say, in this particular case, now that Aaron Rodgers clearly stepped over the line, what is ESPN going to do about it? Now, as you can tell, I'm a big Minnesota Viking fan. I'm certainly objective when it comes to Aaron Rodgers, and I'm certainly objective when it comes to the Minnesota Vikings, for any of those of you that have heard any of my other shows in the past. That being said, Aaron Rodgers has a significant track record of, if you will, making things up. Aaron Rodgers has a track record of, I hate to use the word lying, let's just say stretching the truth, or not answering the question with a response that is not entirely truthful. I'm not going to get into the COVID debate. I'm not going to get into anything political on this show, but Aaron Rodgers has certainly overstepped on numerous occasions, not just on the Pat McAfee show, but in other places, to the point where whatever comes out of Aaron Rodgers' mouth at this point is not inspirational New York Jets football players. Look, Aaron Rodgers' torn ACL was a terrible thing for the New York Jets. The New York Jets organization should have gone out and got a backup quarterback immediately after that happened. They didn't. The result is the New York Jets yet again are not even sniffing the playoffs this year. That's not Aaron Rodgers' fault. But then for Aaron Rodgers to actually come out and start talking about the fact that he believes he's going to be able to play by the end of the year was, quite frankly, reckless and ridiculous all at the same time. The Jets went out and brought in Nathaniel Hackett as their offensive coordinator. And all puns are intended, Hackett can't hack it as a head coach and or an offensive coordinator if Aaron Rodgers is not available. He has proven that in the last 24 months in his last two stops. Despite the fact that Sean Payton had it in for Russell Wilson from day one, Russell Wilson certainly played significantly better under Sean Payton than he did under the Nathaniel Hackett regime. So Nathaniel Hackett calling plays for this New York Jets team was at times just so painful. Now, we all understand that offensive lines in the NFL are certainly very important. Look, Najee Harris of the Pittsburgh Steelers finally saw some light from his offensive line. It has been 3 years since poor Najee Harris has had any light to look at between a guard and a tackle. It is absolutely ridiculous how bad the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line has performed when it comes to opening up holes for their running backs. Finally, in the last couple games, some things have changed for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Najee Harris suddenly looks like a running back, a legitimate running back in the National Football League, which leads me to the Dalvin Cook issue. Now, Dalvin Cook was a member of my Minnesota Vikings for years. Dalvin Cook put up some absolutely fantastic numbers just last season. Well, as a Viking fan, it was apparent to most of us that Dalvin Cook had lost a step. For Dalvin Cook to go from 1,200 plus yards from the line of scrimmage to basically nothing with the New York Jets this year is a clear reflection of the fact that Nathaniel Hackett, as an offensive coordinator, I'm not even talking about his job as a head coach, but as an offensive coordinator, just quite frankly, doesn't know how to use the pieces that he has available to him. Now, there's nothing wrong with riding the coattails of superstars. And that is sort of what Nathaniel Hackett has been able to do through his career with one Aaron Rodgers. But take that superstar away, and what do you have? At that point, you end up having the real offensive coordinator. Look, the things that make people great tend to occur when the waters get rough. And when the waters get rough for Nathaniel Hackett, he has not been able to do a good job. Anyways, so when I hear about all of this Aaron Rodgers inspirational stuff coming out of the New York Jets organization, it's either they're afraid of Aaron Rodgers or they are in full Fred Durst agreements, because Fred Durst said agreements. They're in full Fred Durst agreements that indeed aliens exist, and indeed Aaron Rodgers could have played at some point this season. All right, and finally today, on the very first episode of Power Lunch, the House of Takes Power Lunch, and our shows are going to go from a half hour to an hour in length. So make sure you subscribe to the Big House of Takes channel. And of course, tune in next week when we have more episodes. But the sky is falling for the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, I'm going to put up some information here about Cam Reddish for you. And I want to point this out. Now, Cam Reddish is for the season averaging just under 7 points a game. Now, it's a little hard to see, but in the last game that Cam Reddish played in against the Miami Heat at home, a game in which the Los Angeles Lakers lost, and then the sky totally fell out on Darvin Ham. Justified or not justified against Darvin Ham, the point I would make is in basically 19 minutes of play, Cam Reddish scored 0 points. He had 1 assist, 4 turnovers, and no rebounds. Now, his fellow starter in the Los Angeles Laker lineup is a guy named Taurean Prince. As a fan of the Los Angeles Lakers and the Minnesota Timberwolves, I can tell you that Taurean Prince would not be somebody I would consider to be a starter for my basketball team. Now, is Taurean Prince, a good backup? Is Taurean Prince, is Taurean Prince good enough to be in NBA teams and head coaches rotations where he's like basically a top 10 player on a team? Absolutely. Do I like Taurean Prince as a 6th or 7th option? Sure. Why not? Do I like Taurean Prince as starting for the Los Angeles Lakers when Cam Reddish is also starting for the Los Angeles Lakers? And the answer to that question is absolutely not. I think this is an absolutely terrible decision by Darvin Ham to start both Taurean Prince and Cam Reddish at the same time. In the game against the Miami Heat, Taurean Prince must have said at some point to Cam Reddish, "I'm going to outdo you tonight, Cam Reddish. You only got to play 19 minutes. I'm going to play 29 minutes for the Los Angeles Lakers today." And wait for it, How many points did Taurean Prince score in 29 minutes at home against the Miami Heat the other night? The answer is 0. 0 points scored by Taurean Prince. 0 points scored by Cam Reddish. Both players in the Los Angeles Lakers starting lineup. It is, I'm not even going to get into their draft pick from this year. I'm not going to get into the fact that the Los Angeles Lakers didn't really make any huge offseason moves. It might have been a little bit of fool's gold that the Los Angeles Lakers were experiencing after their run into the playoffs last year, all the way to the Western Conference Finals. I can totally see that the Los Angeles Lakers said internally, let's see what this particular team can do. We'll add 1 or 2 pieces, but nothing too major. But let's just see what this current roster can do. Look, D'Angelo Russell is who he is as a basketball player. And he clearly is not working out for a second time with the Los Angeles Lakers at this point. I'm not really sure where D. Russ can work out in the long run. I've seen hundreds and hundreds of D. Russ games over the years. And I can tell you that young D. Russ, or even a middle-aged D. Russ, is there 2 out of 3 games, which for some players is not bad. Does it justify the amount of money that the Los Angeles Lakers are paying him? I don't know. Should the Los Angeles Lakers at this point go out and make some significant moves to improve this roster? You know, I've come to Darvin Ham's defense numerous times over the last couple weeks. Stuff like, well, Darvin Ham, he's the head coach, and as the head coach, he's only able to work with the ingredients that Rob Pelinka has provided him. Rob Pelinka essentially is the owner of the restaurant, and Darvin Ham is responsible for figuring out which of those ingredients are actually going to get to start, which of those ingredients are actually going to be in the rotation. And I've defended Darvin Ham to an extent. But when I've seen the extended starting of Cam Reddish and Taurean Prince together for this particular Los Angeles Laker team for several weeks now, and there's been little change to that rotation, I have to start to question what in the hell is Darvin Ham thinking? Because you cannot have 2 players at home against a Miami Heat team that didn't have Jimmy Butler playing, and you can't have Cam Reddish and Taurean Prince both leave the game scoring 0 points. 19 minutes for Cam Reddish, 29 for Taurean Prince. It is by far one of the most incriminating facts that you can put against Darvin Ham. Now, has Darvin Ham lost the rest of this Los Angeles Laker team at this point? That I don't know. There's certainly been a lot of rumors out about that being the case, but we don't know for sure exactly how things are going inside that Los Angeles Laker training facility. But one thing is just totally clear. If they continue to start Cam Reddish and Taurean Prince in this lineup, they are going to be in jeopardy of having to do what they did last year, which was work their way through the play-in into the playoffs. Now, is LeBron James and AD together with a Austin Reeves, regardless of who the other cast of characters are on this team, dangerous? Yes. Can the team as it stands today make a similar run that's going to take them all the way to the Western Conference Finals? I think not. LeBron is a year older. And by the way, AD is a year older. And I think the Los Angeles Lakers are clearly going to need to shake this roster up. Whether or not that shakeup is going to work isn't the point. The point is that the Los Angeles Lakers, being the historic franchise that they are, in the same way the Boston Celtics are a historic franchise and continually, year over year, make big moves to actually improve their team, the Los Angeles Lakers need to make big moves. And I don't consider a move for Malik Beasley a big move. All right, North America, that is it for our very first House of Takes Power Lunch. Thanks so much for joining me. I'm coming to you from the Silicon Valley, so I am in the PST time zone, so I'm on the West Coast. Our shows are from a time perspective, are going to start anywhere between 11:30 West Coast time and 1 p.m. on the West Coast. Thanks so much for tuning in and, of course, watching today's show on tape if you didn't catch it live. For the House of Takes Power Lunch show, and I'm having some fun with some of the technology here. Wishing you all a tremendous rest of your sports viewing day.